Hi everybody, David Harper here. I want to talk to you about Rolex watches. I'm going to show you two watches. One is an original drop dead gorgeous Rolex. The other is a beastly monstrosity of a fake. And I'm going to show you how you can tell the difference. I'm hoping this bit of information could save you an awful lot of trouble, strife, anguish, and potential financial ruination. There they are. Have a look at them for a moment and tell me which one you think is the fake. I will reveal it in a second and we'll get down to the nitty-gritty to show you how you can tell the difference. Have a look. Okay, did you spot the real Rolex from the fake? Well, if you said it's the Gents Oyster Rolex, then you would be absolutely right. So how can I tell that this is a real Rolex? Well, first of all, obviously I know it is. I know it dates to 1990. It's steel and gold. It's bimetal. And the gold is the crucial bit because that gold running through the Jubilee strap there, around the bezel and on the crown, is solid 18 carat hallmarked gold. So you know that's how it's supposed to be. You pick up the watch, you feel it, you weigh it. Does it feel right? Does it feel great quality? And when I say great quality, I mean super duper quality. Rolex watches are made absolutely to within a fraction of a millimetre of their lives. They are perfect. Everything matches. Nothing contradicts itself. The corners are the same. They're not too sharp. They're finished perfectly. And again, crucially, the gold is solid. So look at the watch. Do you see any rubbing? If this was a fake Rolex Oyster, then the gold wouldn't be gold, it would be gold plated. And the first thing to wear is gold plate. So look around the bezel. There is nothing but beautiful, shiny gold. Take a look at the crown there. This would be the first thing to wear if it was a fake. And then what you would see there, of course, would be the base metal coming through because the crown would be metal, steel, and gold plated. And as the plate wore, the steel would come through. That's referred to in the trade as bleeding. Makes perfect sense. It's bleeding out. So there's none of that. The Jubilee strap, so down the centre, is all 18 karat gold. So it's, of course, 18 karat gold. On the back, it's nicely hallmarked 18K. It's got all the reference numbers on the strap. Now, that's not an absolute determination that it's a real watch because, of course, the fakes do all of this. But look at the case. Nicely marked and scratched. I like that. It's pitted. It shows signs of wear. Now, it takes a very long time, 30 years of hard use. And when I say hard use, Rolex watches are made to be used hard. They're not mamby-pamby watches. They're just about bomb-proof. So you'll often find a watch of this age with lots of marks and scrapes and scratches on it. That's a good sign. Now, bear this in mind. If the steel is marked, scratched and pitted after 30 years, then the gold itself has had the same sort of wear. So if it was fake, then it would be rubbing. It isn't fake, it's all gold. But because gold is much softer than steel, you'll find that the strap, the gold part of the strap, has worn quite badly. I'm going to show you. So when this watch was new, I would have been able to hold that Oyster watch just like that, let go of the case, and the watch would stay just about in that position. It might move to about there because the strap would be very tight. But because gold is much softer than steel, and over the last 30 years, the gold has worn and the steel hasn't, it's stretched, and therefore, if I let go of the case, that's what happens. Perfectly normal, actually quite acceptable. I've had much worse. That doesn't worry me at all. But you'll have to consider that at some point in the future, you'll have to replace that strap, and that's going to cost you a lot of money. But it's a good indicator that the watch is absolutely genuine, because if that was a fake and the strap had worn to that extent, there is no way on earth would the gold colouring have remained. So look at the back of the strap, the bracelet, all perfectly marked, clean, crisp in line. Again, Rolex make things to absolute perfection. If there's anything out of line, it's a big worry. Go back to the face. The face can tell you an awful lot. Look at the date marker there. You see that it says that it's the 11th. You'll see that the background colour behind the 11 is champagne in colour. That tells you that the original face to this watch was indeed the classic standard champagne. At some point in the last few years, probably, I've owned this watch for a couple of years, last few years that face has been changed to white to kind of modernise it, to funk it up a bit. I don't have a problem with that. You can always change it back to champagne. It's perfectly fine. It's not expensive these days to change the colours of Rolex faces. You can make them really wild, really jazzy with all sorts of different colours. I think it's a great idea and it looks really, really smart, so that's fine. Again, back to the date, you see that it's very big and very crisp. I don't know whether I can actually get the camera to show you behind what they call the Cyclops. Can you see the 11 there? You can just about see how small that 11 is. And you look at it through the Cyclops and it magnifies to 2.5 the times of its real size. Now, Rolex do this so well. Fakers do it really badly. So if the date numbers don't scream out at you when looking through the Cyclops, there's a very good chance that the thing is fake. So to recap, before I move on here, look for wear, look for signs of use, and look for quality. Once you've handled just a couple of these watches, just by weighing a Rolex watch, generally you can tell that it's real, or it gives you the indicators. But the big one, of course, and I'm sure you know, is this. Every single Rolex watch carries its reference number, so that's its model number, and it carries its registration number, a bit like a car number plate, which relates only to that watch. So bear with me 1 second. I'm going to remove the Jubilee strap. I'm going to show you where the markings are. And if you open up any Rolex watch and you see no markings, it's a fake. So I'm going to just show you finally that this is the real thing before I move on to the beastly fake. So let's have a look at its numbers. So another great thing about Rolex watches is the ease of removing the strap. It's so easy, it's unbelievable. So all you need to do is bung a needle in that hole there and pop out the security pin which holds the strap to the case. So there we have it, the bare case, 2 sets of lugs. Between each set of lugs on a genuine Rolex, there will be some markings, letters and numbers. You can just probably make out that there are some markings there. You're going to have to believe me when I tell you that that says original design followed by some numbers, which relates to the model itself. Google those numbers. It'll tell you that you should be holding a gents-sized Oyster Rolex watch. Very simple. Between these 2 lugs are the watch's unique reference number, a bit like, again, the registration number on a car. There's only one watch in the world with those reference numbers, and they only relate to that watch. So that's it. There's the indicator for an original Rolex watch. Now, I'm not going to say that fake watches don't carry reference numbers, because some do. But if you open up a Rolex, remove its strap, or what you think is a Rolex, and you don't see any numbers, it's a surefire way to confirm that you are holding a fake. But actually, just whilst I've got the watch right in front of you here, and it's a good shot of the face, I'm just going to debunk something. Look at the second hand. Can you see how it's sweeping around the face? Strictly speaking, it's not sweeping at all. It's juddering because it beats 8 times per second. That's a characteristic of a Rolex, but not all Rolex. So when somebody says to you, if you've got a Rolex and it ticks, ding, 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 like that, it's a fake. It's not quite true. Some Rolexes do indeed tick. And if you see a Rolex and it is sweeping or juddering just like that, doesn't mean it's real either, because the fakers can make the watches look just like that. So ignore the second hand. It tells you absolutely nothing. Right. You're going to have to believe me when I tell you that that really is a genuine Rolex. It's 30 years old. It is absolutely gorgeous. The new model, the equivalent, will cost you, I think, about £7,500 today. That watch, I suppose, you could buy for £2,000 to £3,000, and it's a good investment. So that is lovely. Nothing wrong with that watch. I adore it to bits. Now, let me show you something completely beastly. Don't buy the next watch. Enter the beast. And it genuinely is a beast. It may not look like it because it looks like a Rolex Oyster deep sea dweller, but it isn't. And that's what makes it absolutely beastly. It's a terrible out and out fake. And I almost feel embarrassed to admit that I've owned this fake Rolex for several years. And even worse than that, I actually bought it. But in my defence, I bought it by accident because I purchased from an auction a box of interesting objects, and at the bottom of the box was this Rolex Sea Dweller. Can you imagine how my heart leapt the moment I saw that watch? Well, it did leap, and it leapt for about 5 seconds because that's how long it took me to realise that this indeed was a dreadful fake. Now, at that moment, I should have thrown it away or even smashed it up, but I didn't. I kept it, and I've had it for years, and I'm now going to admit I've even worn this watch on a number of occasions. And the last time I wore it was at a posh do in London whilst giving an after-dinner speech to 300 people. I came off the stage after being up there for an hour with this fake Rolex glistening on my wrist. I sat down to have some drinks with some people who were all very nice. They'd had a few drinks, and the guy next to me nudged me and he said, "By the way, David, can I just say, I think your Rolex is absolutely magnificent." I said, "Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you, but it is a fake." Do you know what he did? He burst out laughing. He thought I was telling a joke. It wasn't a joke. I didn't tell him, and he now thinks still that this was an original Sea Dweller. Anyway, it isn't. It's horrible. I do own it, and yes, on occasions, I wear it. Honestly, forgive me, please. But now I'm going to show you how you can tell that this beastly watch is indeed a dreadful fake, and you definitely shouldn't be buying it. Okay, let's begin with the case itself. First of all, take a look at the face. Look at the sweeping second hand. It sweeps like a Rolex. So just to remind you, ignore sweeping second hands. They mean absolutely nothing. So this thing is a big watch. It's bigger than the Submariner. The Sea Dwellers are much chunkier. They're much rarer, in fact, than the Submariners. And this watch, I can tell you, should weigh 215 grams, including the bracelet. Out of interest, the Submariner weighs 152 grams. This watch, I've weighed it, weighs 160 grams. So immediately, you know, it's a fake. But look at everything else. Remember, Rolexes are as perfect can be. This thing has very sharp edges. It's just machine manufactured in bulk to a very poor quality standard. And talking about poor quality, check out the bezel. This thing sounds horrible, but it also has a terrible movement to it. Now, the watch is pretending to be relatively new. There's no way would a relatively new Rolex watch have a wobble on the bezel there. That would be a fault. Now take a look at the date marker. No cyclops, no magnification. Now that, in this case, is not a worry. If you saw it on many other Rolexes, that would be a worry and an indicator that it's a fake. When it comes to the Sea Dweller, it doesn't mean it's a fake. They're not made, this particular model, with the magnified cyclops. But take a look at the date again. You can see it's not bang on. It's halfway between 11 and 12 or 11 and 10. So that would indicate that the watch was original with problems or likely to be a fake. It's just alarm bell territory. Now, before I go to what is or isn't in between the lugs, let me just show you the bracelet. Here is the bracelet or the strap, which is actually worse and tells you more. Tells you, in fact, everything you need to know. So I want you to focus in where my little finger is there. I'm going to try and get it focused just there. Can you see the text? Can you see if I get it nice and straight? Tell me if you think that text is straight. The answer is it's not. It's sloping one way. It's completely wrong. No Rolex ever left the Rolex factory with sloping text. Immediately you know it's wrong. The way that it's made is just rotten. It's poor and it feels very light to the touch. It's in fact very tinny. Finally, back to the case and the big tell-all. The strap is off. I've taken it off obviously for ease. Now let's look in between the lugs. Absolutely nothing. They couldn't even be bothered to impress it with a model number. Even worse, with its reference number. So there you have it, ladies and gents. If this was an original Sea Dweller, it would be worth 7,000. It could be worth 15,000. It could be worth many tens of thousands. As a fake, it's not worth anything, by the way. And many people I know will now be screaming and probably leaving me comments saying, never wear that watch again, and smash the thing up. Anyway, here is a very quick summary. Well, I hope those top tips on how to spot a fake Rolex and a real Rolex are of use to you. Just be aware. The fake I used as the example in this film is an easy spot. It's a dreadful fake, but in the world of fakes, there are some particularly good ones now coming in from China, costing £600, £1,000. They're that good. Even the movements themselves are marked. So it is buyer beware, but buy a Rolex and you will get a lifetime of enjoyment out of it, and it will turn out to be a great investment. Let me know if there's anything else you want any top tips on. Don't forget to subscribe, and please don't offer to buy my Rolex Oyster, because this is absolutely not for sale. However, if you're interested in a nice fake, only kidding, that going in the bin. See you next time.